Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things certified financial planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And today I'm joined by a very special guest. Now, I know that I say on every one of my podcasts I have a special guest, and they are all very special. But today we have an extra special guest, and that is Mr. George Kinder. Hello, George.
Hi, Jackie. Great to be here.
Now, I'm going to tell everybody about you before you start chattering, because you and I have a great relationship, don't we? We have known each other for quite a long time, I think 20-ish years, although neither of us look that old. And you when you first came to the UK back, I think it was early 2000s, 2003, 2004, when you published your first book, The 7 Stages of Money Maturity, and that took the UK by storm. So many people have admired you, listened to you, watched you, sat in awe of you over the years. And I know that you've written a number of other books, I think 4 other books since then, haven't you? So we're going to talk about all of those today. But also, I wanted to delve about and, talk to George Kinder, a different kind of conversation. So I'm really glad that you're up for having a different kind of conversation with me. So very warm welcome.
Thank you, Jackie. I've been looking forward to this. Great to reconnect.
Excellent. So let's dive straight in, because I know, so many people around the world and in the UK know the George Kinder, the father of registered life planning. But actually, tell us a little bit about how you came into financial advice in the financial planning world, because I don't think it was a really traditional route, was it?
No, not really. And in fact, I was absolutely surprised, gobsmacked that that's what I was doing. But I had I don't know, my skills as a young man were all mathematical. Mm-hmm. So I was skilled enough in them to get into Harvard. But at Harvard, I found myself bored with mathematics. I went into economics. I found myself bored with mathematics. And eventually I found myself all the way over to English literature, and decided that what I really wanted to do was to be a poet. And also I loved meditation. So I wanted to have a spiritual life as well. Yeah. Well, of course, when you get out, you discover that nobody's going to pay you a dime for your meditations or for your poetry. So I had to find something to do that would pay me. And I went back to my old skill set, and I became a tax advisor. Basically, I did tax returns for a living. And during that time, I continued to feel this pull. Like, here I am doing a job, and what I really want to be doing is writing and living in nature, really. And so I thought, well, there was this new field that was coming out called financial planning, and I thought, boy, I should learn something about that. Yeah. So at first, I was learning it primarily for myself, Jackie, and to figure out, how can I be free? How can I live the life that I want to live? Because that to me, it was obvious that was what money was meant to do, was to deliver us into that freedom.
And then on that journey, you became a certified financial planner professional, didn't you?
Well, I did. It was amazing back in those days. At this point, I have the most incredible appreciation, even reverence for the certified financial planner designation. But back then it was really practically a brand new thing. And I became it because it was at least a systematic body of thought approach to all the different facets of finance. But at the same time, it was rather crude and rudimentary. And I still think it has some elements of that to it, because the people that started it were not starting from this dream of freedom, but were starting really from a sales background or a legal background. Yeah. And but I became one because I thought, wow, this will help me. I'll really know then how to help myself get free. And already I was beginning to see that my clients, my tax clients, were getting ill-served by essentially product salespeople who called themselves financial advisors or financial planners.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, that's still happening today, isn't it? We have a lot of people here in the UK who are, obviously with the advent of commissions being split away from the cost of advice now and the product that's sold, but there's still, a lot of financial advisors in the traditional market doing that, and also a lot of people calling themselves a financial planner when they're not actually doing financial planning at all. So I think the picture's moved on, hasn't it, in the time that we've known each other? But there's still lots more to do on that front.
Lots more to do, Jackie, and it's disappointing. I think one of the disappointing things of being in the profession now for almost 50 years, certainly 40 years, is that in a way we haven't gotten a lot further. There really should be, the consumer should not be confused ever by who is truly a professional and who is really primarily a salesperson. Confusion should not be in their minds.
And so at what point did you start to think that, you could do more? There was more to financial planning than, the 6-step process or 7-step process as it is now for the CFP board in the US, and start to think about, whether you thought about writing your book or, where did that first kind of negative idea, where did it come from?
Well, I think the first idea was, it might surprise you, but it wasn't that I learned the CFP, the systematic study of the 6 or 7-step process, and then thought, oh, they're missing something. What happened was that I knew right away. I didn't have to see that in any special way as clients came in. I knew right away they were missing something, because they didn't start from the dream of freedom. They didn't start from, there was no training really in how to listen to your clients. And there was no training that what was the real purpose. It was almost as if we were like a doctor or a lawyer, where the client came in and they told us their pathology or what it was they were confused by. And we simply, like an encyclopedia or someone with great books on our shelves that we knew very well, we would tell them what the solution was. And my version of financial planning was quite different. So my version was quite different right from the beginning. And even as I was studying all of those courses, I kept linking each one of them: the insurance, the retirement, the portfolio construction, the taxes. I kept linking each one of them to my own personal dream of freedom, which was giving me information, because I'm not that different from lots of other people, that was giving me information about all the other people in my tax business. And so I was beginning to realize, oh gosh, this could really help these clients get free. So I saw something early on, and I saw that the CFP curriculum lacked it. And whenever there were courses in, for instance, goals and or aspirations, and also what was interesting, Jackie, was my tax clients. I intuited early on with my tax clients, this was before I became a financial planner, that I had a great deal to learn from them. because I found that when I really listened to them well, already I knew listening was the secret. When I really listened to my tax clients well, they would reveal things to me that would break open a whole new set of possible tax deductions for them, which would save them taxes and give them more income for the year. So I learned to listen, and I think I was so good at listening that all of the therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists in the Cambridge, Massachusetts area, and there were a lot of them, all of them practically, it seemed, came to work with me as their tax advisor. Wow. And so what I became interested in was they were clearly very good listeners. They were unlike most of the people that I knew, or you and I know in the world, and they were really good listeners. And I realized that the more I knew about them, the better I would serve them. So I started going to all their graduate level continuing education programs and spending my weekends in groups with them without the basic degrees that they had, but taking the advanced listening courses that they were taking. So I learned a tremendous amount about listening and about counseling, and in some ways, ultimately about what financial planning is not about, because we're not meant to be therapists, but we are meant to be great listeners. Yeah. And that was an incredible experience.
I can remember the very first session that you did at the Institute of Financial Planning Conference with the IFP Fellows. I don't know if you remember that.
You remember it.
There was about 40 of us in the room, and you had us sat opposite, in pairs opposite each other, and looking into each other's eyes, talking about, what our hopes and dreams were. Even though my husband was in the room at the time, I wasn't looking into his eyes, but it was quite funny. But I can remember the discussions, some of the discussions that we were having as a group after that, saying, well, where is that line? We're financial planners, as you say, we love our numbers. We love our numbers. And yes, we've got to ask our clients these questions, and some of these are great questions, but how do you approach it? And where is the point where you say, actually, where is that line? We've crossed that line. I need to pass you on to, a professional counselor or, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, with all of my knowledge of therapy and therapists and psychologists and counselors, social workers and the like, I think maybe 3 times in my 30-year or so career, financial career, 30 or 40-year career, only 3 times did I refer someone to a therapist. And the reason was that what was happening in that room, Jackie, and what was happening in America at that time, when I released the 7 stages of money maturity, you can look at it and see all of behavioral finance in it. You can see a psychology of money. You can see a philosophy of money. And what happened in that room that you were in was very similar to what was happening in America, which was people were going, this is what we've longed for, this is what we've needed. And then there was this big gulp, this big pause, and this gasp, and this question. And the question was, well, but how do we do this? Yes. Right? How do we do this? And I think too many people, and I didn't realize that people wouldn't realize from my writing of the book how to do it. So I went back and designed on the back of an envelope the process for actually doing it. And yes. and that's have called Evoke, and that led to the Registered Life Planner designation. Yes. Because we're not meant to be a psychologist, and psychologists typically look back in the past a lot, not always, and they're very much looking at problematic areas. And what I realized was that it's a much more rapid process if we look at how to get the client to freedom, to their aspiration, to their excitement, their passion for life. And whenever they mention something that is challenging or difficult, and that comes up a lot because money is a tough subject for many of us, for most people in the world, it's tough. And so when that happens, what we learned from the psychologists is we learn just simply to empathize in a very kind way, to let the client know, oh, I'm so sorry, and just pause. and let them go through their own process. The feelings move in a process, in a kind of almost in an arc-like way. They're like waves, whereas thoughts are like particles. And so we give them that space to move through it. And we catch them on the upswing of that wave, and we move them toward what would be an incredible life for you.
Yeah.
What would be extraordinary? And that's really, to me, and I think this is why my work has been so popular really all over the world now, is that's to me what financial planning is destined to deliver into the world. What would be a remarkable life for you?
Yeah.
And each of us should be living the most remarkable life that we possibly can.
And I think for me, when people say, how would you sum up, the books and George and, what he's been trying to achieve all these years, what he has achieved, huge number of things that you've achieved over the years. And I say for me, it was about learning that it's okay to be where you are and that we can all learn more, but that you're giving your clients that safe, a supportive environment to flourish.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Jackie. I mean, it's, holding that space in a way that gives them that kind of permission, it is an art in and of itself. And, a lot of people get fastened on the three questions because they're so challenging, or they're so exciting, or they're so riveting, or they're so despairing. They're powerful questions.
Yes.
But the truth is that the real essence of what we teach is this capacity to listen and be comfortable in our own skins, and to be here in a way that gives the client the ability to explore. And the interest in exploring, and not the fear that we're going to sell them a product, or we're going to pull out our tax code and tell them what the answer is.
Yes. It's that, and not having the rug pulled out from under you. You're entering an emotionally charged environment potentially in expressing yourself and kind of exposing yourself, in the nicest sense of the word, to the financial planner to help you get where you want to go.
Exactly. And the thing that's a surprise about the registered life planner and the person who's really been trained in this is that they're not what you think of as a financial planner. They're someone that, as you say, is really comfortable with where they are, and is capable of communicating in such a way that you feel, as the client, really comfortable with where you are. Yeah. And that opens up the possibility of looking at what would be incredible.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad that you wrote that book, because probably about 6 years or so before your 7th stage of money maturity came out, I was working as an advisor myself. And I've said this to some of our listeners before. One of the most terrifying experiences I had as an advisor was I had some regular accountancy clients who came in, and one day they came in for their annual review, and we were chatting, and I said to them, "Where do you want to be in 5 years' time?" And they looked at each other, looked at me, and said, "Divorced." Well, I was in my early 20s. I had no experience. I was completely out of my depth.
Oh my God. And it's certainly true. And if you, I mean, there's an art to asking those questions. And there's an art to receiving the answers.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a setting that is really most appropriate for the conversation that happens, the relationship that happens in the midst of that kind of thinking. And so that in general, a great planner is not going to be thrown to the wolves.
I wasn't a great planner then, don't worry.
They're not going to be thrown to the wolves. They'll be completely prepared, but also the client will also feel much gentler, much easier, much more reflective on who they want to be. So anyway, there's an art to it, and that's what we teach. That's what life planning is all about.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. I certainly needed it. I wish to wave my magic wand in that situation, because I had no idea what I was going to say as a 24-year-old who'd only just qualified as a financial planner. But these things happen, don't they? I guess you learn from it. I guess, from my point of view, I was pleased that they felt they were in a safe enough environment to say it out loud, which was the first time they'd done that. But like you say, I wasn't ready. I had no idea that they were going to say it, but actually I wasn't ready for the response. I wasn't ready with how to cope with that and how to accept it and to support them.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, what an incredible story, Jackie, because, when you study the CFP, you've learned about separation agreements and divorce agreements and that kind of thing. And so, what are you supposed to do? They say in 5 years, they want to be divorced. You're supposed to go, okay, well, let's get busy on it right now.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Apart from nearly falling off my seat, it was a tough day at the office that day, I can assure you.
Yeah. And that was a failing. That really was a failing. Still is to some extent, although the CFP training has gotten much more thoughtful in that regard. But it's still too little in that arena, preparing us for those kinds of responses. Yeah.
So let's delve about in your 3 famous questions. And I think, because that's probably the thing that most people know you for, isn't it? These 3 great questions. And, we were chatting, weren't we, on the email earlier this week. And I was saying to you that I've had the 3 questions posed to me, and I felt unprepared to be asked those questions. And like you say, I think it's about, they're great questions, but you can't just slap them on somebody, can you? You can't just kind of stroll in and plonk yourself down and go, right, if you had all the money that you ever needed in the world, and what would you do with it? Just as an opening gambit, it doesn't work, does it?
Doesn't work. My favorite horror story about it was someone who's actually a really dear friend of mine at this point, but he was known to his clients as a salesperson. And so he even didn't pop them on right in the meeting. He sent them off to his clients after getting trained and said, we're going to talk about this in the next meeting. And one of his clients wrote back and said, I will never talk about those questions with you, ever. I wouldn't think of answering those questions with you. And so it was the wrong approach right from the get-go. You need, these are serious questions, and they're questions about death. There's questions about legacy. They're questions about what's most deeply and profoundly important to your client. Those are questions that you want to know if you're going to be a decent financial planner, but they're not they're not questions that a client wants to tell a glib financial advisor, a salesperson, someone who thinks that a relationship is a game of golf. They want to know that you really are A, capable of listening, and B, within that listening, really empathic and supportive of wherever they might go. So you have to establish that first. And that's, one of the wonderful things that happened as a consequence, as I said, this back of the envelope response was that we created the whole program that we now know as Evoke. And Evoke is a 5-step process. And the last 2 steps are essentially the CFP, the 6-step financial planning process. The first 2 or 3 are really about gathering this information, building trust, establishing just a fantastic relationship. You're really building your business here. You're building a relationship with a client that will never leave you because you have all the financial planning skills with your CFP, but you also have the these listening skills that are so supportive and so valuable. And then moving them into their inspirational place of what would really be just an incredible life for them. And then designing the path for it in short order so that within a matter of months, they feel they're really on the path. Within a couple of years, they feel like they've really launched. So that's Evoke. And the 3 questions are in the second realm of that, they're in the vision. EVOKE is an acronym.
Yeah.
And the V stands for visioning.
Yeah.
And so that's where the three questions come in.
Imagining where you want to be and what your life would look like or should look like, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I think, since going through that process and, I can see the benefits of, whilst I appreciate, obviously so many millions of people around the world bought your book, that actually there is more to it than just the book, isn't it? Because you've got to continually hone those skills, like you say, to accept the answers to those questions, to be able to support the clients and then do something with it. And I think, we've got about half of our audience who listen to our podcast regularly now who are under 35. And so many of them that I talk to say to me, we want to do financial planning first and foremost because we don't have, the old shackles that many of the rest of us did of product sales coming into, what is now a financial planning profession. So do you have any tips or any words of wisdom? Because I think particularly some of the younger ones have said, I can feel a little uncomfortable. I can answer these questions and I'm comfortable asking the questions. But with some clients who are older than me, do they look down their nose at me? Like you say, do you get any responses that I'm absolutely not answering those questions? So have you come across anything like that? What would you say to some of the younger?
Absolutely, Jackie. And in my own life, I haven't. And I'm gonna speak my truth here, which is I think they should take the Evoke program because there they will. You listen. You learn there not as an academic kind of listening, not to a professor speaking to you, but you learn it's a small group of people, 10 or 12 people, and it's all we let in. And they pair up. And they pair up for 4 or 5 days. And during that time, you life plan your partner and they life plan you. So you learn all of the skills of listening and inspiring and then engaging to action. And you come out of that program with your own life plan, living it. And you come out of the program as well, knowing the stages and the processes that, and seeing 12 people wrestle with these questions as clients as well as advisors. So you learn all the different ways a client might respond, and you are prepared then for your meetings going forward. So that would be where I would go with it. But you had another question there that was interesting, and I've now lost it. Do you recall what it was? Partly, how would you get the, and partly about...
so it's about this age difference of trying to...
Yes. Oh, yeah. So, I've got a wonderful story for you. So, back when I'd just written the 7 stages of money maturity, I had clients just like what you were describing. They were older. They were, and I thought they really wouldn't appreciate what it was that I did. So I had been working with them for 5 or 10 years before I wrote the 7 Stages book. And I'd never asked them the 3 questions, even though I asked many of my other clients, almost all of them, the 3 questions. But them I'd held back from because they were older, they were much more well-to-do. I thought they would judge me, all these different reasons. So I just received hundreds of books from my publisher. I'm signing them all, sending them off, stuffing them into envelopes and sending them off to all my clients, and with little notes with each of them. And I have finished sending them off to every single one of my clients except this couple. And their book is sitting there on my circular meeting table. And I'm debating, and I'm not proud of this moment because, I'm going, what are they going to think of me? And they won't like this, I thought. And so it wasn't the proudest moment of my life. And then I had another thought, which was, again, I'm not particularly proud of, but I thought, gosh, I just got interviewed by the Boston Globe. They're going to read that article. They're going to find out about me anyway.
Yes. And you haven't sent them the book.
I haven't sent them the book, so I might as well send them the book. And I'm not particularly proud of that thought either. And then finally, a good thought came to me, which was the following: this is who you are. This is who you've been for a number of years. Yeah. You've held back for all these years from sharing with this particular couple. It's time you let them know who you are.
Yeah.
And so I sent off the book and off it goes to them. They were the first people, Jackie, who responded to me. And it was back in the days, and you might still do this in England, but you rarely see it in America. They sent a tiny little note card back to me with just a brief few sentences in it. In just a few days after I sent them the book. And it came from Ruth, from the spouse of, and I'm trying to remember his name. I think his name's John. But so Ruth wrote me and she said, "Dear George, we absolutely love your new book."
Oh, wow.
Absolutely love it. And in fact, John's been reading it, read it straight through, wouldn't let me near it. And then I finally got to read it. Now he's reading it all again.
Oh, wow.
But we do have just one small question for you. Why didn't you do this with us? Question mark. And so for the young advisors that you're reaching out to, Jackie, that notion that the older person might judge you, and then you feel rather anxious. I mean, that's really what the relationship structure is like. So you feel anxiety. The truth is that you're more the person who's suffering from the questions than they are.
Yeah.
That you have more anxiety than they do.
And actually, you've got nothing to lose, have you?
What's that? You've got nothing to lose. And moreover, you're going to learn. As you said, with the divorce situation, you learn from it. So you come into the next meeting, you're prepared for that question. You've thought about a bunch of different ways that you might go. And you still may have 3 or 4 meetings to go with new clients throwing you with that answer about divorce before you really get it. Yeah. And you become a master at it. And that's just part of becoming a great financial planner.
Yeah. And do you think, talking about do you feel like you become a master doing it? Or does it just kind of, I guess it just kind of gels, doesn't it? Because it kind of becomes part of who you are.
Yeah. Well, back then, I mean, we all go through our developmental phases, and there I was. It was my anxiety that I was scared of, not theirs. And in fact, I tried to ask them the 3 questions. I missed a part of the story. I tried to ask it 5 or 6 years before. And what happened was that both of them kind of froze on me. And one of them looked down and wouldn't look at me. And the other one kind of tapped their fingers on the table. And it was really odd. And the one who was looking down crossed their arms and kind of scowled. And I thought, whoops. Made a big mistake here. And I just went back to doing a normal financial plan. Yeah. But the truth was that these are deep questions.
Yes.
And so a person's going to be impacted by them.
Yes.
And it might come up with them, well, this is a young person asking me. But if the young person has kindness in their bearing and a capacity to listen and be comfortable in their own skin, and that's what we train in life planning, then the older person's going to go, boy, I wish someone had asked me this question a few decades ago.
Yes.
Let me think about it.
And I wonder whether, that older client probably then doesn't even see the age of the advisor who's helping them.
No, exactly. No. And if anything, they really appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's really they go, wow, this is quite extraordinary. This is a true professional that I'm working with. Yeah.
Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you about was financial coaching. There's this rise. I don't know if you've noticed it in the States. I certainly noticed it in the UK. But there seem to be more and more people who are offering financial coaching for planners. Also, some people who do financial coaching for clients of planners, which I think is quite interesting. What's your take on that? Where does that kind of slot in George's world?
Yeah, well, I think all of this is good. I think everything that we learn, for every financial advisor that learns more about listening and more about aspirations, these are all great things, Jackie, I think. And at the same time, they're insufficient in a way. So first of all, just let me pause with they're great things. They're great things because they're putting you in a place where you're going to be encouraging the client to be the best person they can be. What could be better than that? That's wonderful. So I want to pause with that and celebrate that for a moment before I come in and go, well, but at the same time, there's something that's lacking in almost every program that I've seen. And one of the reasons that we created this Evoke program, Evoke was based on being a certified financial planner. Yeah. In other words, it came right out of certified financial planning. It wasn't something that was, oh gosh, I've learned all these coaching skills and now I'm going to glop them on. No, it came out of my own practice and my own successful practice at landing clients and delivering to clients the life that they always longed to live and creating a client base that never left, that was sustainable. So the great thing about Evoke as opposed to a financial coaching is that it's been proven. It's been proven in 30 cultures all over the world. Yeah. And it systematically, just like the CFP is a systematic study of money skills, of professional thoughts, the legalities of it, and it's systematic. And Evoke is likewise systematic in terms of building a business, building a relationship with a client that is really touching and meaningful, and that wins the client in a way forever and creates trust. I mean, the trust element is a very important part of this. Yes. And these are things that I don't think the coaching profession really delves into. But trust, for instance, is probably the major issue in financial services everywhere. We don't trust financial services. Yes. So Evoke really delivers trust. So, and then it's also doing what the CFP asks us to do, which is put the client first. Yeah. So we put them first in every meeting. And then the other thing that it does that's quite wonderful, and it's quite nice to coach someone, but what have you done with your own life? And in life planning, one of the sayings we have, and one of the ways we structure the training is you can't be a life planner unless you've been life planned yourself. You can't be a life planner unless you're living your life plan. Yes. So you're really walking the talk. Yeah. And so that's really something. So that's my thought. They're all good. The more we can bring this kind of thing into the profession, the better. Yes. And I love what we've done at Kinder Institute. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's something that I think, many individual financial planners as well as organizations aspire to and look up to from right around the world. In my experience, George, I think you've created a great thing here. And I just wanted to pick up actually just quickly, because I know we're rapidly running out of time, but I wanted to pick up on something you just said there about trust and trust, of gaining trust, not only of the clients, but perhaps of their children, because there's lots of talk, isn't there, about the baby boomers, as they pass away. There's something like $66 trillion, cascading down to other generations that are coming through. And I read some research recently that in the States, they were saying that certainly some of the CFPs were saying that they're losing quite a lot of their clients by not gaining the trust of not only the clients themselves, but as they pass away, obviously the clients' children. Yeah, true. And that should have been obvious a long time ago.
Yes.
because really what a lot of those advisors, how they've approached their clients is, again, as if they've got a shelf of books. They've got the most sophisticated tax strategies or investment strategies. And so they're selling the money and they're selling law. They're not selling the person on their own life, on being the best person they can be. So when a parent is passing on their inheritance to their kids, they don't say, David over there, my CFP, is just the best person in the world, and you really need to meet them and talk with him or her. And Jacqueline is, they don't say that. And that's what you want them to be saying. That's what they should be saying. And they would be saying that if you had delivered them, the CFP, had delivered them into the life of their dreams and were always there for them in an empathic and aspirational way. So, for instance, Kathy and I have two lovely daughters who are now, believe it or not, 17, Jackie.
I can't believe they're 17.
I think you saw them when they were barely born. And we have hired a financial planning couple that we love, that we just trust, love, know. They're the incredible listeners, and we have already introduced the girls to them. Hopefully they will never have to use them. That we will live long enough, but if we don't, they're there. Yeah. And we know that they will listen to the girls. So we've introduced them as knowing all these facts and figures around money, but primarily as being really good people to talk with about anything financial that the kids might, or anything aspirational that the kids might have.
Yeah, it's again, it's like you can't see it coming. I mean, it happens when it happens, doesn't it? And if you've got, it must give you and Kathy comfort to know that if something happened to the two of you, that your girls would get that kind of level of support and love and care, to deal with everything that they need to as far as the finances go.
Absolutely. And that the girls have a little bit of that confidence already being born inside of them so that they are really open to it. And much less likely than to be sold on something else. Yeah.
That's a fantastic thing. And I think that's probably, certainly for me, one of the biggest tips, being surrounded by financial planners as I am. My son actually isn't quite as old as your two beautiful daughters, but he's 13 going on 40. But talking to him about money and starting to, help him understand that actually it's just a means to an end, isn't it? It's about what you want out of life.
Yeah, that's it.
So my final question, as we are rapidly running out of time, is I want to ask you what would be the one thing, if you were looking back now and you could talk to your 19-year-old self or your 17-year-old self, what would you say to the 17-year-old you?
I'm going to answer it with a paragraph here, and there are really three things in a way, Jackie, that I would say. And one of the books that I've just done a strong first draft of, and that I hope will be published toward the end of this year, is a book called The Three Domains of Freedom. Mm-hmm. And the key to it is in the subtitle. So the title is The Three Domains of Freedom. So what are they? So first subtitle, each moment is yours. Second subtitle, your life is yours. Third subtitle, civilization is yours. And the notion here As you know, I've written books on mindfulness and books of poetry and photography. Each moment is yours. Is what mindfulness, which is great listening. All mindfulness is great listening inside of ourselves. Each moment is yours is about mindfulness. So make each moment yours. And the second one, your life is yours. That's life planning. Get life planned and live your life plan. Your life is yours, not to be lived by, anybody else's design. And then the third thing, civilization is yours. Too often we live thinking that it's their fault and here we are in crises, as we know, in the world. And too often we think that it's the government's fault or it's corporations' fault or it's the billionaires' fault or it's our next door neighbor's fault. And the truth is that civilization is meant to be a domain of freedom for us. And as a domain of freedom, each of us is responsible and should live freely in it and craft it the way we really want it to be.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. I'm really looking forward to reading your new book, George. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for allowing us to have a different kind of conversation with you. George Kinder, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jackie.
I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to other people's points of view about different things, all relating to our wonderful financial planning profession. If you know anyone who might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, please pass on our details to them. So that's it from me. Join me again next time when we'll be talking all things certified financial planner related and also dropping in on our new entrants to the financial planning profession. Bye for now.